Made in Bristol. This is BCFM 93.2.
Well, further revelations this week. It's almost every few days some other horrendous bit of news comes out in the national press now, Martin, about the child sexual abuse inquiry where VIPs, Tory party members, civil servants and public figures are involved. Still nobody to head the actual official inquiry, but the press is conducting an inquiry of its own, it seems. And this time last week, the Daily Mail revealed a whole load of new stuff about Dolphin Square, paedophile orgies in luxury flats, and claims 3 boys were murdered by VIPs. And the Daily Mail has a special report into the growing stench of a massive cover-up by the establishment. The claim was as clear as it was chilling, says the Mail. Behind the genteel facade of one of London's most famous apartment blocks, children faced abuse on an industrial scale. Every weekend, groups of vulnerable boys from local care homes were being smuggled into an address in Dolphin Square, Pimlico. There, after being plied with alcohol, they suffered sickening sexual assaults.
Well, yes, and of course, we're all more aware of paedophilia as a result of the Jimmy Savile case and all the rest of it, and of course the sad case we were hearing in Bristol itself this week. But what's significant about...
I just ought to say that can't be classed as paedophilia because the children were 13 years old, older.
All right, but the point is we're talking about abuse of young
Bristol,
people.
Yeah.
I don't suppose, I suppose, we don't know the age of all of those that went through Dolphin Square.
I'm just trying to get the terms defined here.
All right, well, I mean, the point, we're talking about the sexual abuse of young people. Let's just keep it as simple as that. I think what makes this significant is, as I said earlier, the fact that the deputy director of MI6 has been implicated in this, the former deputy director. The fact that the King Corra Boys Home in Northern Ireland seems to have been a similar setup where essentially the intelligence services are using paedophilia as a political tool. So just let me extrapolate there. If you can get people in senior positions compromised by having sex with underage people, with children, then you can basically make them do what you want. And I think that's the real scandal underlying all of this. It's not just people pushing their predilections, it's that there's been a deliberate attempt to foment paedophilia as a political tool, just as terrorism has been used as a political tool by our intelligence services. It's high time that our intelligence services were put on a proper legal basis. Okay. And that probably means dismantling them as currently constituted.
Just to continue the Mail article, the paedophile ring orchestrating these crimes had over time come to believe it enjoyed immunity, a whistleblower told the police. After all, members were said to include a cross-section of Britain's most influential politicians. I have been specifically told that we were dealing with Conservative MPs, that whistleblower John Mann recalled to me this week. That's one of the things which stood out for me. Another was how violent it sounded. There was talk of dogs being involved and beatings. I would describe it as quite awful, the sort of thing you don't easily forget. Mann, who is now a prominent Labour MP, originally stumbled across claims of abuse at Dolphin Square in 1988 when he was an ambitious young councillor in the southern London borough of Lambeth. At the time, he was leading an inquiry into endemic corruption in the left-wing council's housing department, where millions of pounds of taxpayers' money was being siphoned into crooked building contracts. The whole place was rotten to the core, he recalls. I was leading a team of 3 or 4 employees looking into it. The scale of corruption was enormous. It involved criminal gangs. 2 of our sources were drivers for the Craze gangsters' rivals, Charlie Richardson.
Yes, well, I've seen stuff on the internet which suggests that the Craze were involved in these paedophile rings, these elite paedophile rings. I don't know how true that is. I think that's for an inquiry to uncover. I think the real point, as I'll stress it again, is what we're looking at here is the use of paedophilia for political purposes by the intelligence services. I don't think it's an accident that there are D-notices delivered on 2 local newspapers that we're trying to investigate.
Well, just explain what a D-notice is.
A D-notice is a traditional mechanism in our glorious democracy whereby people like ourselves can be told to shut up because what we're saying threatens national security.
Okay. D-notice is effectively a kind of warning, a legal warning saying if you go ahead and publish this or broadcast it, you are likely to be sued under the Official Secrets Act
Not
or
sued,
some sort.
prosecuted.
Prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act. Okay, yes, because that would be a criminal prosecution. That's certainly not a civil matter. And that's taken pretty seriously by journalists. It was good to see The Guardian reporting that. Nobody else really seemed to do it.
Well, I think that shows you what we're dealing with here. So people who are trying to...
National security, how does this fit with them?
Because MI5 and MI6 are using these places, King Cora Boys Home, Elm Guest House, as honey traps. Doesn't sound very honeyed, though, does it? Dogs and beatings.
No, it sounds pretty horrific. Martin, ultimately, do you think there's going to be a proper inquiry into this? Because it does look like at the moment it's all being left for the press to deal with, and the official inquiry is at a standstill. We're
ultimately going to have to deal with the overmighty power of Britain's intelligence services working in league with criminals in the financial services industry and the military-industrial complex. Now, we either do it the legal way, by the police doing their job properly, otherwise society will start to make its own conclusions about what's required.
Getting bigger by being better. The #1 choice for Bristol. This is BCFM 93.2.